We're talking about trying to take the process of sales and try and utilize tools like Kixie, like Supered, and like automation in general in order to kind of systematize that sales approach and make sure that it's distributed across all your teams, and then make them a lot more efficacious with the time they have during the day. That's kind of what we're here to talk about, which is awesome.
Love it. Yeah, I think that's very cool, especially with how everyone keeps talking about this thing called AI, how AI is being introduced.
I've heard of that.
Yeah. It's this thing that I keep hearing about. Yeah, and define what the revenue orchestration term means and how Kixie is, pioneering this in the ecosystem.
Yeah, I think I'll start with the problem, like kind of how we kind of came about with the entire idea of the orchestration engine and kind of what it solves for, because otherwise it sounds like a lot of buzzwords that just kind of fly over people's heads. So I've been in sales for a bit. I've managed sales teams. I'm currently the head of sales for Kixie. And I noticed that amongst sales teams, like almost universally, there was a problem. Every day, the salespeople would come into work, and typically they'd get a hold of and start reaching out to the deals that just came in, brand new deals, hot off the press. They'd also reach out to deals who were obviously like waving their hands in the air and saying either that they want to buy or that there's a problem with the platform or whatever you're trying to sell them. They'd reach out to all those people. And then they'd check their watch and they'd be like, okay, I've got 6 hours left of my day. Who do I reach out to? And then they turn hopefully to their super integrated HubSpot pipeline, and they see between 80 and maybe 160 deals in various stages of their pipeline. And they have to figure out who to reach out to, when to reach out to them, and how to reach out to them. And typically there's only been two approaches historically for this problem. The first is what most sales teams do, and I've been guilty of this too. And it looks something like this. Sales rep looks at his pipeline and goes, oh, let me reach out to Gary. I haven't talked to him in a while. It's been a bit. And, oh, shoot, I was supposed to email Sarah like last week. Let me get a hold of her. Literally, they just kind of hunt and peck through deals. Typically, they reach out to deals who are the loudest or maybe the biggest or the ones where they had the most like rapport built up with the customer. Like those are the deals they reach out to, squeaky wheels, in other words. And then all the people who are quietly evaluating whatever the product is tend to get a real underserved amount of the outbound communication. And you can see this in some of the awesome reports that Super helps build right inside of HubSpot. You can see this big discrepancy between deals that get a whole bunch of touch points at every stage of the sales system, and others that get like a third of that or a quarter of that. And on top of that, when we reach out to them, it's completely random. It's just whenever the sales rep happens to notice the name or the deal title or something like that and reaches out to these guys. So a system was developed by companies like Outreach and SalesLoft who defined a Gartner quadrant called sales engagement platforms. And that's kind of where Kixie finds itself today. And a sales engagement platform, and HubSpot does this too, by the way, inside a Sales Hub, they typically have what are called sequences. Really, these are prescriptive sequences. And a lot of people who are watching this probably know what I'm talking about when I start describing it. Day one, deal comes into your pipeline. Create a task. Rep one, call this deal on day one. Day two, create a task, send an email. Day three, create a task, send a text. Day four, make a call. Day five, make a call, that kind of thing. But when you think about it, there's no particular reason you're calling that deal on like a Thursday at 2 p.m. in the afternoon, except that it's day five in your sequence and it tells you to do that. There's no reason to do that except that it's just an arbitrary date and time just to make sure that lead doesn't get underserved like they were getting before. And that was like a revolutionary thing. And that's basically where development in the sales engagement space has stopped. And kind of they all just use that same methodology. But again, if you're using HubSpot and the platform like Super, which I hope you guys are listening to this, you've got all this data flowing in. Besides even the process boards that Chris already mentioned, if they've opened emails that you've sent, if they've engaged with a chatbot, if they've downloaded a white paper, if they've tried to email a different sales rep to get a better price quote and go around you. Like all this data is flowing right into HubSpot and Super. And what does every sales engagement platform on the market do with that data? They call on day five at 2 p.m. in the afternoon on a Thursday, because that's within the sequence. They're not taking any of that into account. So in between day three, which was send an email, and day five, make a call, all this stuff could have happened, and you're going to be waiting around for day five for that task to pop into your task view, or for a rep to just happen to notice the deal and decide to call because of the activity. Like, there's a better way. It was my thinking. And so we've been building all of these like automation's been trying to hack together a solution to this for a while. And then LLMs came around and they really changed the game. So I call this problem the deal segment between new deal arriving and deal waving their hand saying they want to close. That's the messy middle of the sales process. It tends to be where we lose as sales leaders the majority of our opportunity cost. I think sales leaders tend to be pretty good about trying to get hold of leads quickly when they first come in. And obviously they're on top of the reps. Hey, when is this deal closing? When is this deal closing? When they're at the end of the cycle. That messy middle is where us as managers tend to lose deals, and it's where reps lose them too, just in the mud. And then at the end of it, you ask, well, why did this deal fall off? You're like, I don't know. They kind of just stopped communicating, or they ghosted us, is like the typical response. And you'll see that logged in HubSpot in the outcomes, but there's a way to solve for that, I think. So what we've built, this orchestration engine, is a way to use all of that data flowing in to a platform like Super and HubSpot in order to trigger calls and text the minute this intent data, is what we call it, comes in. So what we do is we use various LLMs like Claude and OpenAI, and we partner with platforms like Ask Elephant or Gong or Triple Session, or our own conversational intelligence, or HubSpot's conversational intelligence, to take intent data, like an email comes in, and that email has, let's say, what we would consider to be buying intent. And before, that was impossible to program in the workflow, right? Like there's no way to program a HubSpot workflow to use email has buying intent, then do the X, Y, and Z. But now that we can send that data, whether it's the email, whether it's the call transcript, whether it's the text message, whether it's the chat, we can send all of those messages to an LLM with a bunch of kind of pre-programmed prompts that we have. And we can say, hey, does this qualify as buying intent, taking into account all the other previous communication within the deal? And then what we start to build is a profile of that deal. And the LLM can have, we have these sets of rules and like kind of weights and measures for each different company, depending on what they like. And it can be something like, hey, like if we've got buying intent on the previous two communications, an email and a call, and now they're downloading a white paper on pricing, let's call them that second. They're looking at a pricing white paper. They've been displaying buying intent for two previous communications now. Dude, if they're looking at pricing, let's jump on them right away before they get a hold of someone else. So what'll happen within the Kixie platform is we'll trigger an alert right then, hey, so-and-so is downloading a white paper with two previous buying intent signals. You should trigger a call. Rep reacts with a thumbs up, triggers the automatic call to go out to that prospect right then, that second, whether it's 8 p.m. at night or right in the middle of your workday, get a hold of them, hopefully close the deal and move on. If you don't get a hold of them, you can drop an automatic voicemail with one click. You can then send a previous follow-up text message, like maybe 2 hours later. And the second they reply to that text message, now you know they're at their cell phone, trigger another call, get a hold of them right when they're on their phone right then. And so it's like an example of using something that sounds really complicated like AI or an orchestration engine to just take advantage of all that data coming in and make more intelligent decisions of when to call and text people. That's kind of what we're doing.
Yeah, I think it's very cool, especially in the sense of I think that the next generation of selling will be an AI powered experience, not an AI fueled experience. And I think that we experience a lot of the AI fueled experience right now, which is, I believe there will be a rebirth of mass blast email marketing and like mass blast sequencing in a really bad way, because now it's easier than ever to create content and it's easier than ever to get access to data because of AI. And the result of that is everyone's going to resort into giant sequences of emails that don't factor in where I am in the journey. It sounds like the clear difference that you're making is factor in the experience in the journey and act upon the firmographic and behavioral data at the time when it happens. Don't rely upon the sequence step. Like be more.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah. That's a great way to put it. We're going to customize the sales experience to meet the prospect where they are. So, and I think you're absolutely right. I have a general rule in sales, which is generally like the larger the hurdle is to engage in a medium of communication with a prospect, the more valuable it is to them. And the lower the hurdle, the less valuable it is. So to your point, the minute people were able to customize, I remember we have like contact tokens, and it would be like, hey, insert name here, blah, 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 blah. And when that first came out, it was wild. People were like, oh my God, it was sent to me personally. This isn't a blast email, like that kind of thing. But soon the market became flooded with it and it was no longer personalized. And now we all know it's just spam email. You're right. The same thing is going to happen with this AI customized email. The minute the barrier to entry becomes really low and it becomes really easy to execute at scale, the value of that communication diminishes because people can flood the zone with it. Whereas if you went door to door door, which again, I'm taking an extreme example, but like that's so hard. The barrier is so high. Whenever someone comes to Kixie with a little resume in hand, I will always give them a first interview, no matter what that resume says, because of the effort required to bring that resume to the front door, knock on it, and deliver it to our company. So like I think that's going to be always universally true. So what we're trying to do is make the communication that is more targeted, more specific, a little easier to execute for the reps. Because one thing I think humans are still much better at than AI is building rapport, communicating like we are right now, that kind of thing. And although maybe there's a future where that's going to be different, right now it's definitely not. Mm-hmm. However, the thing that AI is better as people are is sifting through all this large amount of data coming into your CRM at one time and figuring out how to act on it. Like we as humans are not good at that. So why push my sales reps to do that when I can have AI help them alongside with that?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. It's interesting, especially as you mentioned the death of personalization. I think that when things like that end up dying because they get oversaturated by usage of, from everyone, new and creative tactics become, more important. And so the door-to-door piece of, bring a resume to the front door is very powerful. Something that we do a lot of is Loom videos in our sales cycle to show that we're like hyper personalized, and we don't do any sort of editing upon the videos because you can't. You can't replicate that, and it's all about how to provide the experience. And so, I think it's interesting in the sense of how, your product is very targeted in a specific channel of, calling, texting, mobile device usage, I would say primarily. So in an area where there are things like calling agents being created to mimic people's voices, how do you stand out and continue to create the revenue experience and orchestrate it when things like that are being created?
Yeah, that's a great point, because to be clear, we have kind of a legacy platform that leans very heavily into what has always worked up until now. So it allows for multi-line dialing, 10 lines at a time, blast through all these numbers, get a hold of people. But we're also very fearful of the future where you're right. You might have AI agents able to do that 24 hours a day, around the clock. I mean, who knows where the TCPA regulations are going to go around that, but like, I'm not naive. The people are going to skirt those, and there's going to be platforms that allow for that. If and when that happens, does the value of those kind of blasting calls go down? I believe it does. And so we want to kind of hedge our bets and skate to where the puck is going. And so we have this orchestration engine too. So people will come in, and this is largely the case of any new emerging technology. No one's coming to us right now for an orchestration engine. They're coming to us because they want to get through a large list of people they need to dial very quickly and make their reps more efficient. And that's awesome. And so we are happy to provide a platform that does that for them right now. But also, we want to make sure we're equipping them with the latest and greatest so that as the market changes, they're prepared for that change too. I mean, iOS 26 is a great example of that. The minute that release came out, the efficacy of just straight shotgun approach, dialing tons and tons of people, took a big hit, because now you have a screening mechanism for all of those calls. And we have an AI, luckily, and so we've had to develop an AI to kind of engage and skirt around that. But even then, it's a cat and mouse game. So again, it's trying to make sure that we have the future platform ready for people, so that there's never a time when they can't get a hold of customers that they really need to get a hold of and move their product forward.
Interesting. Yeah. So then I assume what you're referencing is when, Apple had this is a sales call thing that shows up on the phone. And so how do you prep like design around that, and like,
oh my God, it was really hard. I mean, what we lucked out at, without giving away too much secret sauce, is that the messaging itself is relatively consistent. And so it's not impossible to kind of design around, which is lucky. But again, like the resources of Kixie are nowhere near the resources of an Apple. Like we're not going to win just a cat and mouse game for that long. So again, I believe if you would ask me, in 5 years from now, does it look like a shotgun approach or more like a sniper rifle approach, to use a crude analogy? And I would say probably more sniper rifle and less shotgun. Like I think to your point about this Loom messaging, it's going to be very hyper personalized outreach that meets the customer where they are. So I know for me in a sales process, like if I'm thinking about potentially buying a platform or engaging with the salesperson, that's the best time for the salesperson to call me, not at a time when I'm in a meeting or doing something else. And so the closer we can get to that alignment when they're thinking about the very thing that they're potentially buying, get a salesperson to talk to them about that thing, that's like the optimum situation. And so the more we can use AI to find those moments, whether we know they're browsing a pricing PDF, whether we have mixed panel data and them engaging with a website, whether they're engaging with a chatbot right now, and it could be a real live person, those are great opportunities to get a salesperson on the call that second. Not in the future, because we know they've engaged with it, but right then. So that's really, it's that instantaneous action is the thing that we're doing as opposed to creating a task later on to get to. Because again, like I think, this is, I'll take kind of a funny tangent, but I think this is more poignant than ever right now. If I were some alien who visited Earth and you asked me to predict which came first, text messaging or calling, I think I would think text messaging came first every time and calling came later, because if I think about the two technologies, texting is a limited amount of data. You're constrained to 36 characters. There's no tonality. There's no voice. It's not bidirectional. It's one unidirectional. I send you a text, you send me a text. And I would think calling came later because that's a more progressive technology. It's tonality. You can kind of really glean intent from the way people are changing their octave or their voice. All this kind of data is being transmitted bidirectionally, but it's not. It's actually the opposite. And it's so strange to think that these days, if I get a phone call that I'm not expecting, it's almost akin to someone knocking on my door I'm not expecting. It's like, whoa, what is this breach of etiquette that someone is calling me unannounced, But the crazy thing is what we've done is we've traded a less elegant technology for a more elegant one. And the only thing that makes it more elegant is the fact that it's unidirectional and it syncs with my time and my ability to communicate, and then it'll acquiesce to my own schedule on that, the communication part when it comes from the other end. So really what we've done is we're saying, I'm willing to trade all of that. I'm willing to trade tonality, octave, bidirectionality, all this stuff, even if it means sometimes we create an argument where none needed to be had because text messaging is easy to, I was being sarcastic, they didn't notice, oh no, now we're in an argument over something that didn't need to happen. I'm willing to take all of that just because it constrains itself to my schedule. That is more worthwhile to me than everything else. I text you when it's convenient for me. You text back when it's convenient for you. That one data point is more important than all the other stuff I'm giving up. And so I think this communication when it comes to calling is going to be the same sort of thing. I would much rather have calls that come at a time when I'm willing to talk about the the content at which the call's about, than a call that's at a bad time, bad date. I'm thinking about something else. I'm engaged in some other occupation. I think that's more valuable than a lot of the other stuff that we hold on to right now. So anyway, that's kind of where I think the puck is headed.
Yeah, I agree. And I hear the term leading indicators quite often.
Yes.
I think that this is very much reflective of that, in the sense of you want to capitalize on a leading indicator at the point in time when it happens.
Yep.
Strike while the iron's hot is kind of the idea.
You nailed it.
So when you're defining your own revenue orchestration strategy, are you basing it off of an existing customer who is the best or who has had the best sales experience? How do you define what a leading indicator is? Is it based upon existing data, or are you hypothesizing and validating?
That's the trickiest thing. So for our own implementation, because we ran this with us first as a beta, we were able to use our previous call and all of our previous data and find correlation. Causation was hard to tease out, but at least correlation between the event and how correlated that was with a deal closing. With customers, when they come in and adopt the orchestration engine, we typically give them a baseline weights and models. These are how many points an inbound email with buying intent is worth versus a white paper download versus a chatbot exchange versus we have all this data points and we give weights and measures to it and set a threshold. But then people tend to customize because everyone's sales process is different. For some people, an email with buying intent doesn't mean much, or a future demo being scheduled with an AE doesn't mean that much. But maybe a text message with buying intent means a lot. And so we're able to tweak that and customize it for each person that comes through. And luckily, I have a whole sales engagement team that is bunch of people who have engineering backgrounds and build this stuff out for free for our customers. We're which is a lot like Super. You guys do much the same thing. You guys have a bunch of baseline packages you could deploy right away, but I also know when customers work with you, you guys build these really kind of custom, like couture solutions for people that are awesome, and they really kind of align with their particular business, which is why one of the reasons I think we work well together and why I was so excited to come on the platform, because I think we both have that same kind of mentality when it comes to kind of customers and building solutions that are really built for them. And I also see that as being where the market is trending. I think with software being easier and easier to develop from scratch using coding tools and AI, I think just having an out-of-the-box platform that everyone uses as is going to be less valuable over time, because it's going to be more easy to enter the market with a solution like that. So I think solutions that are customized and built and have engineers building it around that particular customer base, that's a higher bar to entry. And so again, it's going to be worth more as the market shifts,
Yeah, I agree. So as someone who is, let's call it a sales leader or someone who owns revenue inside of a business,
Yep.
What would the starting point be for kicking off, a sort of revenue orchestration strategy?
Yeah, great call. So I think the very first thing you'd want to look at is I'd take a look at those deals in the middle stages of the pipeline, not the ones in the beginning and not the ones at the end. And look at what the communication looks like in those middle segments. Does it look sparse? Does it look like that's where you tend to be losing deals? And if it does, that's, I think, a good leading indicator that you could probably use some revenue intelligence or an orchestration engine inside of your sales process. If you're a one-call close shop and everything is dying or closing in that first like 2 stages of your deal segment, you probably don't need this as much. Like, you could probably still stick with what's always been working, which is a multi-line dialer that uses an AI to kind of avoid IVRs and voicemails, and we have a perfect solution for that. But if you find you are losing deals in the middle stages of your pipeline, then my guess is that you're not taking advantage of buying signals that are occurring within those stages. And you need to start setting some, I almost think of it like fishing, like some bait. You need some white papers they can download, some content they can engage with, chat experiences, text message outreach, little pieces of bait. And when they nibble on that bait, we can start setting triggers for calls and texts, or at least start adding to a point threshold beyond which we're triggering a call or suggesting a call from a rep. And that's, I think, where you really want to start working with Kixie or with some solutions provider that can build some real custom like workflows that use an LLM to handle that fuzzy logic component about buying intent or buying signal. And the good news is it's easier than ever to do that, and we're capable of doing that. Before, it wasn't even a question of, it was like very binary workflows that determine this kind of stuff, and they were pretty brittle. So you'd say stuff like, okay, inbound email comes in, trigger a call from a rep to that deal. But then you get situations where the inbound email is, don't ever call me again, and it triggers an outbound call from the rep to that deal. Well, luckily, now that we have LLMs that can understand human communication, it's no longer so binary. And so now we can create systems that are robust with regard to a sales process.
I love that. Yeah, that's very insightful and scalable, which I think leads into one of the questions. I'm checking questions across channels right now.
Oh, yeah.
One of the ones is, and I'll put it in the chat because it's in a niche channel. What is the tech stack of the future? So you mentioned like the 5-year, and I'll highlight this.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's the 5-year? You mentioned in the future, it could be a thing that works out of the box, and those will end up dying out because you want further customizations. But what is the ultimate tech stack that runs the revenue orchestration and like the revenue function of a business in 5 years?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you a combination. This is going to sound self-serving because we happen to be on a call together, but it's the reason I'm on this call with you in the first place, so it makes sense. I think that you're going to have some out-of-the-box solutions like a CRM that form the baseline, like the central source of truth and repository for all this intent data that's flowing into it. And then you're going to have a solution like a Supered that hyper customizes that out-of-the-box basic platform and repository to meet your needs. And that's going to make the kind of out-of-the-box platform hyper customized for the various stages, various different contact tokens, various different, like whether they're deals, contact records, companies, and all of them are going to be nestled within each other, because we're going to start breaking these into very very specific roles and people within organizations. And there's going to be a lot of data we're trying to collect amongst each of them, whether it's searches within social media, views within social media. I mean, I imagine intent data to become very hyper personalized in the future. Like, did this MAC address view these videos pertaining to this kind of subject matter in the previous 24 hours? Like, I see very hyper personalized intent data being pretty readily available because of just how ubiquitous it's becoming. And that's going to flow through your kind of out of the box solution that's been hyper customized with a solution like Super into an, like, I would consider it, by then I wouldn't even call us like a calling and texting automation platform. By then, it's going to be just called a communication channel, probably. It's going to be something like a Kixie that uses whatever medium of communication that person wants to be contacted, whether it is a Telegram message, a WhatsApp communication, a LinkedIn in-mail, a video message through whether it's through like FaceTime or through Google or whatever it is at that point. And it's going to be trying to sync up whatever communication channel is preferred by that person we're trying to reach out to at a time that's most preferred by them. Like, I'll give you an example of like a customized kind of workflow that we built for a specific customer. They were really big on trying to engage people at times when they were posting on social media, because the platform was about helping their social media. And so we were able to basically take a look and say, hey, when people start posting this particular deal record starts posting on LinkedIn, on Instagram, or on Facebook, we wanted that to be worth X amount of points in the orchestration engine and trigger a call or text to go out to that person. I see that as just a tiny glimpse into what the future is going to look like. When I see a person engaging with the world in this way, I want to engage with them in that same way. I see them posting on Instagram, I want to send them an Instagram DM that second about what our platform does to help them with posting on Instagram. Like, very meta kind of hyper personalized communication. I see that as being the future. And I think a lot of these platforms are going to become interoperable. Like, I'm going to be able to say, I want to use this platform for texting, this for WhatsApp communication, this for video messaging, and kind of nestle them together. I see like the idea of a monolithic Zapier in the past. There's going to be a million different integration platforms, or just platforms like ours and yours that have tons of API and webhook access. Just allow them to communicate with not only each other, but also LLMs very well. And so you can set out these kind of agentic systems that improve over time. Because that's the other part, like, that we have a flywheel going on. I'm sure you guys will too, with our platform itself. So as we see usage data indicate success, it then takes our platform and moves it more in that direction. And I think a lot of software systems are going to become, you hear agentic a lot, and it's a very fancy buzzword that execs love to throw around in meetings nowadays. But basically, it's just a platform that improves on itself over time based on the data coming into it. Right now, data comes into a platform like ours or yours. We, or our product people, look at that data and make suggestions to the engineering team. Engineers alter the code to then meet that, and the platform gradually moves along that rung. That human component of that exchange, that's going to be taken out. You're not going to need a human to say, oh, look, we see usage data across this and that leads to better retention in our customers. The software is just going to know, hey, as people use this component more or see success here, they have more success with the platform. We see more deals closing. Super is showing us a scoreboard where more and more deals that are engaging or have a correlation with that activity are moving forward. Let's double down on that. Let's try and really emphasize that aspect of our platform in the code as we go forward. And so I think you'll see a lot more of that. I know it's a big rant to a small question, but
yeah, no, I'll get in. It bodes well for our next question, actually, which is, you mentioned a lot of different activities of Instagram DMs, Telegram, Facebook, text messages, LinkedIn, stuff like that.
Yep.
Who defines the activities that are quantified in that engine? Is it the sales reps who are actually conducting and responding to the activities? Is it the rev leader based upon their experience and like the ideal customer profile? Is it both?
That's a great question. So right now it tends to be the sales leaders. So it tends to be either their operations managers or the sales leaders themselves who are requesting, okay, these are the activities, these are the fish hooks I want to add bait to, and this is how much a nibble on that bait should be worth in terms of this engine and what the threshold should be for triggering a call or a text on that medium of communication. But to bring this question together more closely, I would love a future where individual sales reps can do more to design that. Like we do allow for customization between reps on our platform. It's just that typically they aren't data driven enough to be making those kind of decisions. If I ask my sales reps, how much should an inbound email with buying intent within 24 hours of a previous sales call be worth? They have no idea. I mean, they're not the one doing the analysis to figure that out. But man, in the future, I would love it to be able to not only have them dictate that, but also have the system kind of customize itself to what works best or what has the most correlation for them. Because right now we're bundling all of our sales reps into one giant data source and saying, on average, an email with buying intent within 24 hours of a positive communication via phone is worth this many points. But maybe for this rep, it's worth a lot more points than it is for this rep, just because of how they conduct their sales experience. And so a hyper-personalized one that kind of, as systems become more agentic, I think they'll generally just diverge. And you'll have a system that naturally becomes more tuned to the weights and measures of a particular rep as opposed to the team as a whole. Again, long answer to a short question,
No,
but there it is, yeah.
Yeah. This is the last one from the external chat source, but does this touch post-sale? So I know you're a B2B SaaS company, as we are, and so we have some level of post-sale team that does renewals and stuff like that. So is revenue orchestration just net new logos, new business, or is it something that you do post-sale?
This is a fantastic question because I developed this as a sales engine, being a sales leader, and immediately the response I got from customers who were using it was exactly this question. Actually, they came to me and said, actually, this messy middle that you've defined for your sales team, that's not just the middle, that's the entire process for a post-sale team. Our upsell team operates entirely within what you're calling a messy middle, meaning we have deals that have just been closed and they're just part of our customer base now. And how the hell do we know when to reach out to these people and when to try and upsell them, when not? How, like, we have maybe you have mixed panel data, maybe you have data about their usage or whatever your platform is. And so you'd love to use that usage data to trigger calls and texts. That's a great source. In fact, in some ways, post-sale right now with the state of technology has an almost easier time with this, building out this bait with these hooks, because you have, in a lot of cases, usage of whatever the product is you've sold to them. You have this data at hand right now. And again, what are we doing? We're asking our individual humans to be making decisions based on this, all this data coming in about when to reach out to customers. And that's just a bad use of human time and intent. Like, I want my humans to be building rapport with people and building like conversation and finding out more information about where their business is at and how they can help. I don't want them scrolling through lots of intent data and trying to find like, oh, right, okay, they downloaded this white paper and then it looks like, oh yeah, then they engaged with a chat bot. Did they use their voicemail drop? Oh, they did. I should give them a call. Like, that's a bad use of human time. We should have AI doing that, and we can, which is great.
Yeah, which leads to a question from Grant. How do you address the fear that a rep could get replaced with AI?
Yeah. I'll give you the short term and then long term. So short term, I tell every one of my reps this because I've had this conversation. Like, I wouldn't be afraid of AI replacing your job right now. I would be afraid of someone else using AI replacing you at your job right now, especially for young people in sales or even people who've been in sales for a while. The biggest fear I would have is people who have adopted this technology to become more efficient, outpacing you in your current role, because that's what's going to happen much quicker than AI taking your job as a whole. So number one thing, I'll tell you the quickest thing I did to get me and my sales reps comfortable with using ChatGPT in the early days, and this sounds ages ago now, but every time we open a new tab as a sales rep at Kixie, the new tab default URL is your ChatGPT interface. It sounds really simple, but it's what I did to train myself on how to use it, because I found myself typically not using it, Googling stuff and doing research, and then after the fact going, oh shoot, I should just ask AI for that. So instead, every time I go to do something new, I want to be confronted with an AI interface that poses the question to me implicitly, should I ask Claude or GPT this question before I go try and do it myself? And oftentimes the answer is yes. So that's the very first thing I would do. I would get really comfortable with using AI to help you in your sales process, whether it's through conversational intelligence, coaching and analyzing your calls after the fact, whether it's constructing emails, whether it's doing research, whether it's even just sometimes formatting emails or presentations. It's fantastic at it. Get really comfortable using that. As the tools get better, you'll find you're more able to use them, and you'll be at much less risk of AI coming and taking it. The other thing I'll say is that if you yourself use AI to increase your own efficacy over time, what I see happening in the future, and this is again years forward, but when AI is so good that it is conducting these sales calls, or at least the more routine parts of them, like demos and stuff, if you yourself have been able to create methodologies for improving the efficacy of yourself using AI, you're going to be in a great position to be a manager of those agentic agents as they go forward, because you'll know exactly how to kind of best use AI, what it sucks at, what it's good at in helping a person. So when it comes to replacing a person, you have some, I don't want to say you're on top of the heap, but like you're more likely to be the percentage of people who aren't left out in the cold when it does start cannibalizing jobs, which I think, if I'm being honest, is kind of an inevitability, right? Like, so make sure you're, the first one out the door, not the last one out the door. Yeah.
I agree. One of the greatest things that I've heard in a way that you can leverage AI to improve your own performance, and this is sales reps in particular, and I would argue anyone, is if you really want to optimize your usage of AI, here's what you do. You open a Zoom call and you work for 2 hours. And you just record everything on a Zoom call. Plug that transcript. You speak out loud during the Zoom call.
Oh, that's great.
Plug that transcript into a GPT and say, hey, fix my process, make me more efficient.
Ooh, that's a fantastic one.
And use that to optimize what you're doing directly. And so that can be around revenue orchestration. That can be around process improvement. That is kind of the quick fire, and do that, on a repetitive basis of, once a month or once a quarter. That is a money move.
I love that. I'll give you another quick little hack I do. On the way to, I'm driving to work, this makes you sound kind of crazy. On the way to work, I talk to myself with ChatGPT listening about what I'm planning to do that day. What do I have to do? I have to do a podcast with Super in the morning, and then I have to do this, and then after that, and after that. And I lay it all out. And then by the time I get in the office, I've laid it all out. And I ask it, what suggestions do you have for how to format my day? Any tips and tricks you have going into any of the things I'm going into? And it'll say, hey, Super developed this new thing and just released it recently. You should ask Crispy about it. And so I will. Like, it's really helpful for doing that kind of stuff as just a sounding board. It's almost like the executive assistant that CEOs have always had that none of us plebs have ever had access to, and now we do. So anyway, I think it's a really cool way to use it too.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, those are all the questions in the chat across all the channels, and so
fantastic. I had a quick one for you, because I know that oftentimes you get a guest like me on and just all talking about our platform. I want to learn a little bit more about what Super's doing, because I know you guys have always been on the bleeding edge of kind of pushing HubSpot forward. In fact, a lot of the times, if I want to know what's on HubSpot's future design boards for their own platform, I look at what you guys are doing with it, because in some ways you guys are the engine dragging a lot of its kind of more customized, nuanced features forward. So what do you guys have up and coming? What are you guys working on right now?
Yeah, we are all in on process enforcement right now. And so putting training within the flow of work and helping people make the right decisions at the right time. And so big new flagship product is what's called process boards, which allows you to embed process directly inside of HubSpot and see which records are violating that process, enforce it, and then quantify the enforcement variable. And so we see lots of companies.
Give me an example of that, because I know sometimes, like, I'm guilty of this too. We're in tech, and so we say stuff like it's going to identify process improvements and help distribute them across the team automatically with simple integration. Like, what the hell does that even mean? Give me an example of like a customer has used it to increase their process adherence and see some success with it.
Yeah. So as an example, one of the most common things that we find is reps do not fill in the next step field, or they don't have a next activity scheduled, or next meeting, or something like that. What we can do is build a rule inside of HubSpot that will flag that inside of the deal record. Most people try to solve this with a task, but sales reps and tasks are opposing forces. They're never going to work together. And so what we do is we have a rule that flags on the deal record. The rep can go and push play on a board, and then bring the deals to them to come and fix.
Ooh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, and shows them the exact thing to do. So then, David, as the head of sales, you can then go and look at all the things that the reps are doing, and who, if Gary has 10 records, or and Joe has 3, and then this person has 1, and see how that data changes over time and what those rules are. So it's enforcing your process and enforcing your will directly inside the CRM.
Dude, that's so cool. And I think one of the cool things about this is, obviously, I and everybody have fears about the change that AI is going to bring to the workforce and everything else. But stuff like that is, I think, what makes me hopeful, because that's a great example of taking something that we as salespeople hate doing. We hate this stuff. We want to be selling to customers and talking and having conversations like we're having right now. Yep. What I don't want to be doing is a bunch of administrative tasks I have to try to remember off the top of my head to do every time I get off a call with someone like you afterwards in the CRM. So I think the hopeful part about the progression of technology is going to take more of the drudgery out of work. And I think that's always been, if I look at the course of technology and technological evolution over time with humans in general, I've seen that as a consistent pattern. That yes, jobs will change, jobs will go away, new jobs will be formed. But one thing has kind of been universally true. The drudgery inherent in jobs tends to diminish over time as technology is adopted. Like what we tend to do as humans is we tend to solve for the emotionally unwanted parts of our job first, and then start attacking the rest of it. And so to leave on a positive note, I guess, I am excited to see platforms like yours and ours try and take the drudgery parts of our jobs and slowly eliminate that over time, so that hopefully the job of a salesperson is more conversations like this and less administrative stuff we hate doing.
Yeah, you want to spend the right time in the right places, not doing the admin garbage. So I totally agree with you. So,
absolutely.
As a final piece for all of our listeners and viewers, where can we stay up to date with all things Kixie?
You should go to Kixie.com. You can sign up for a free trial anytime, even if you're not even interested in buying right now. You just want to have an idea of what's on the horizon and what kind of new features we're developing. Sign up for a free trial. Every one of our sales reps is like here, based in Santa Monica. We're all extremely knowledgeable, HubSpot certified. We all work with the latest and greatest technology, and we are a very like low pressure sales environment. Like we want you to be able to experience the latest and greatest out there. And if you're not ready for it yet, or you're already on a contract with something else, or like, no problem. Like that's totally fine with us. I've always had the mentality that if we're educational and you learn something on a call with us, then later on you'll always take our call whenever we have a product that we think might suit your needs. And so that's kind of generally the experience you'll have. So if you go and sign up for a trial today, you'll always get hands-on experience. If you mention that you came from this webinar or Snooperd, you'll get particular red carpet treatments. We have a whole sales engineering team. We'll help you build out any automations you want. You'll get extended trials. You get a bunch of perks by mentioning that too. So it's always a good idea too if you ever do sign up.
I love that. That's very cool. And thank you for the insight and the time. This was really energizing. Thank you for
Oh, dude, my pleasure. Yeah, I love these conversations. I'd be back anytime. Thank you for having me.
Cool, man. Thanks.